All right, Darksiders. So you guys know what we're doing. We're talking Star Trek Discovery Episode 8. Now, before we get into it, you guys, I got to give a shout out to my fiance, you guys, because we actually had something planned this weekend. And I was like, baby, I got to watch this episode and get it out so that we can have a discussion. And she said, okay. So I just want to say thank you for that, baby. I love you so much. You guys, she's very accommodating to me getting stuff done on the channel. And if you are not familiar, this stuff takes a long time to do, from watching the content to editing the video and all that good stuff. So thank you so much. Shout out to her. And next, congratulations to the winners of our first official Dark Side Movie Reviews giveaway. Congratulations to Charles Labricou. Charles, I hope I pronounced that name correctly, my friend, because I actually practiced. And congratulations to Michelle Johnson. Those are our winners for our first official Dark Side Movie Reviews giveaway. Guys, enjoy your $50 gift certificates. Have fun. Go check out Thor Ragnarok. Amazing movie. Actually, I did a review for it. I will put that review. I will link it at the end of this video. So go do that. Guys, if you are not a subscriber to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we are covering all things Star Trek Discovery and a lot of other great things going on the channel. And hit that notification bell so that you don't miss anything. And now, finally, let's get into Star Trek Discovery Episode 8. So guys, I'm not even sure how to pronounce the name of this. I know it's Latin because I looked it up. I actually have it queued up somewhere over here. We got it right there. Si vis pacem parabellum, I believe is how you pronounce that. And I think it stands for "If you want peace, prepare for war," which is an appropriate title for this show. And normally I don't really like the titles that they use, but this works for this show. So you know what? There's a lot of things going on this show, in this episode, you guys. Kind of a lot of different storylines going on at the same time. I'm interested to see how people respond to this episode, because the last episode got a lot of praise. People liked episode 7 because a lot of people felt like it was a return to what felt more like Star Trek. And some of you guys even put that in the comments from episode 7. So let me know what you thought about this episode, because this, in contrast to episode 7, was really kind of more of the same of what we got with episodes 1 through 6. So I love the fact, let me say first off, that we jump into this thing in this epic battle scene. And I know, listen, I realize that I talk about this a lot, but I just cannot get over the production value of this. This thing feels so cinematic. It's amazing. So when we jump into this battle with the Klingons, it's just so awesome just to see visually. And again, it's another thing that pulls me into the show. So when we start out, you guys, there's a conflict, and the Gregory, I believe is the name of the ship. I think it's the Gregory, is having a conflict, and she's being attacked by multiple Klingon vessels. And the problem here is that the vessels are hard to detect because they're using the cloaking technology. So, of course, the closest ship, well, technically the closest ship is the Discovery, but we find out later that it's not. We find out actually that there were 2 other ships that were involved in the conflict, and they got destroyed. So right now, you guys, the Federation is getting their butts kicked by the Klingon cloaking technology. And while we do have a ship like Discovery that has a spore drive, and at this point I think they're the only ones that actually have it in full functionality, there are some other ships I believe being outfitted with it, they're still really at a disadvantage because the Klingons have the cloaking technology and that cannot be detected. So they can't really fire on what they can't see. And as it turns out, kind of the overarching story of this episode is really them being on a planet that is emitting some kind of signal that they want to tap into to be able to use to be made aware or detect the cloaking technology. So we'll get into that in a second, because there's a lot of different things, like a lot of different stories, as I said, going on in this episode. But I like the fact that we kind of jump right into the conflict. I'm telling you, like I said, man, I like the heaviness of Star Trek Discovery. I like the darker edge to Star Trek Discovery. And I said before, you know what, I get the whole idea that it doesn't feel hopeful, but I feel like this is an important part of history within the Star Trek canon that needs to be told. This war, this conflict with the Klingons, it wasn't nice, it wasn't pretty, and I like the fact that Discovery tells it with a lot of weight. I like the fact that Discovery tells it in a way that seems very consequential. I just dig that about the show. So anyway, I'm not going to even harp on that because I've said that in other videos and I don't want to beat the dead horse. So I did find that interesting. Also found the aspect of what's going on with the spore drive and Stamets. I don't know how long Stamets is going to be able to keep this up, you guys. Now, clearly, or at least in this episode, when he uses the spore drive, it takes its toll on him. And in this particular episode, something happens when he gets out of the spore drive. He kind of has, I don't know if it's memory loss or if he's understanding things in a different way, but we know that he calls the ensign captain and she kind of confronts him about it. And then we find out later that he just wasn't thinking straight. So the spore drive or the tardigrade DNA is still having some effect on him. It'll be interesting to see how they flush all of that out with him too. I personally don't think that they're going to be able to keep using humans as a substitute to be able to run the spore drive. I just think the adverse effect that it's having on them just isn't going to work. And maybe that's one of the ways that they will work this out of the Federation technology, because we do know that eventually it does get worked out. I was thinking the other day, though, I do hope when they do work it out, that they work it out in a way that is really, really strong and justified, like it's believable, not like it's just here today, gone tomorrow, because it's such a big part of what gives them advantage in this war with the Klingons. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they deal with all of that. But we'll see what happens with him as well. So I was looking at that and wondering which way they're going to go with that. So let's jump to the planet, you guys, and let's talk about what's going on there. So we got 3 people on the planet. We've got Ash, we've got Burnham, and we've got Saru. And when we're on the planet, what we find out is that we think this planet is not inhabited, and it's not in the sense of life as we know it. But we find out later that the whole planet is kind of living, which I think is interesting. And I'm assuming that it's living and it's sentient because of how it's able to communicate with Saru. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong. You know, I can't remember everything from TOS and the series afterwards, but I think this is the first living planet that we've ever come across in Star Trek. In the Star Trek series. Kind of reminds me of Ego a little bit from the Marvel movies. I don't know, maybe just because Ego was a living planet, but we know that didn't end well for Ego in the comic books or the movies. But I think this idea of the planet kind of just being living is cool and interesting to explore. So these guys are on the planet. They're actually searching for a structure on the planet that is giving off some signal. Now, what they're hoping is to be able to use that structure to be able to detect cloaked ships, to really help them kind of turn the tide or kind of gain an edge in the war against the Klingons. So they're there, they're investigating it. Then they find out that, whoa, wait, something's going on here. Like, this planet is alive. So Saru is able to actually communicate with the planet, and through that communication, it is the first time that he is able to experience what it is to have peace, what it is to not be afraid. Can you imagine if you lived in a state of constant fear? Some people actually do due to some like psychological disorders, what that's like. But for him to be genetically engineered to sense the coming of death and then to have an experience where everything is peaceful, you're not worried about anything. It must have been quite an experience for him. So I thought it was cool that we kind of got to see a little bit of a different aspect of him. We find out a little bit more about his character in this episode. And it's interesting, right? Because on the planet, initially, we're thinking, oh, snap, they done took his mind. They done took control of him. He's not himself. Then we find out that he is. But just the ability to experience what it is to live at peace is so overwhelming to him. He's just willing to sacrifice his 2 crewmates and anything just to stay in that state. So I thought it was interesting that we got to kind of see that aspect of him, and it'll be interesting to see how they develop him more in the future. He's a character that I'd really like to see more of and to kind of experience more of. I thought that during the interchange that he had with Ash on the planet that we might get some Klingon stuff in there, because, you know, there's still this theory floating around that Ash is actually a Klingon. I'm still up in the air about that, but it'll be interesting because now I feel like the series is kind of teasing us a little bit with that. And he makes some interesting comments about really wanting to kind of make them suffer and not just defeat them. It's really interesting. You're playing with us, Star Trek. We want to know what's going on. So I thought that part of the show was pretty interesting. And then, you know, kind of how we get to the end, and Burnham tells the planet what's going on. And as a result of that, because the planet itself, its whole goal is to promote peace, takes it upon itself to send a signal to the Klingons to bring the Klingons to where Discovery is in an effort to really gain peace between those two. Uh-oh, screen just went black. Let's press the button. All right, we're still rolling. So, in an effort to bring peace between those two. And that's really kind of how the episode ends. So in the next episode, it looks like we'll pick up. We better pick up with that conflict. I don't want to see like just 10 minutes of how that gets resolved and you take us on another story arc. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how all of that works out, because now Star Trek is in a situation where they actually have to defend the planet, and they actually do have to defend the planet. You know, Lorca will roll out, be like, whatever, peace. But they should, according to the Star Trek charter, they should defend the planet. So we'll see kind of how he deals with all of that. Some other interesting stuff going on as well within the storyline. We do have what's going on with Labrel and Captain Cornwall. Labrel is the female Klingon, and how it appears that she's kind of trying to defect. She's trying to kind of come to the Federation because things are not working out for her like she thinks. But who knows what's really going on with her? Who knows if that's a ploy that she's kind of set up with the Klingons to really kind of gain Captain Cornwall's trust? We don't really know. We have some idea at the end of the episode because of the conversation that she has with the Klingon leader. I can't remember his name, so someone, let me know what that is in the comments. But we're not really sure. But it does appear that she was legit in really what she was trying to do, and that he has found out, and she's about to suffer the consequences for it. Then the show kind of ends at that point. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that story arc. And if she comes over, wouldn't it be interesting to see if she actually does come over to Starfleet and she is actually a help in this conflict? That would be a nice little twist in the story. I'd be interested to see how they would write that out throughout the rest of this season. I think, though, next week's episode is the last episode for the fall season. So we had that going on. Then we had what's going on with Stamets as well. So a lot of kind of different storylines going on at once in this episode. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was interesting. Definitely kept me looking forward to next week. So we'll see how everything pans out here. Guys, what did you think? Yes, no, or did you like this episode? What do you think? I'm interested to see now what people will say about this, because I'm sure some people, after seeing last week's episode, are going to have some negative things to say about this, because it does seem like a return to more of the same of what we had with episodes 1 through 6. Like I said, man, I'm really enjoying Star Trek Discovery. I like the darker feel, the tone. I feel like we're ready for something like that within the Star Trek canon. I've said before, it's okay to have change. I don't feel like it's violated the canon. And I've been honest with some things I don't like about the show. I'm not a big fan of the Klingons. I'm not a big fan of them visually. And I'm not a big fan of their disposition. I mean, I know that Klingons are a little rough around the edges, a little savage in their nature, but these guys are just too much. They almost just seem like grunting animals, and that I really don't like. But all in all, I mean, there's no secret, I'm a big fan of the show, but I like to think that I'm pretty well balanced. And when I see something that I don't like, I can talk about it. Guys, make sure that you subscribe, comment, like, and all that good stuff. We will be covering Star Trek Discovery heavily. We will be covering Into the Badlands when that comes on again as well. And I've got some things to share, a couple of different polls I've gotten that I want to share with you guys about some things I've done on Twitter, some things I've done on Facebook, and some other news that we've gotten surrounding the show as well. So, guys, thank you so much as always. Please make sure that you check out the Thor Ragnarok review that I did. Thor Ragnarok is fabulous. Oh my gosh, it's so good. All right, you guys, that's all for me. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next video. Don't forget to hit that ding and subscribe if you haven't. We're having fun. Join us. Become a Darksider. Bye-bye, you guys.